Bam. Good morning, everyone. Evening, afternoon, wherever you are at. We are coming to you live today, Lion Flood, and I have a special guest today that's coming on. We're talking everything, but we're mainly focusing on course creation, some of the ups, downs, roadblocks, everything that you can do if you're in a process of working to start your course, why you should start one, benefits, disadvantages, the whole 9 yards. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, now's the time to ask. Whether you're going to watch this live or on a replay, make sure you also reach out to our guest so that way you can get informed of everything that she's doing. But first, before I get into anything further, let me bring her on so that way we can talk and get to know her a little bit more as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big welcome to our guest today, Miss Alison French. Yes, how are you doing today?
Hi, I am doing great. How about yourself, Lion?
I'm looking at it. I'm doing so well. I doubled up. Look, I got two cameras
Yes, I
now.
was gonna say, I see you twice.
Let me
Twice is
get rid
nice.
of one of them. Let me get rid of one of them. I was trying to do this. I was trying to give you some applause there. Let's see, where's the Okay, let me add my hotkey
I
there. I
love
think I
it.
think
I
I took
love
my
it.
hotkey off. So, would you do us a favor though? Would you take just a few moments before? Oh, there we go again. Let me get rid of my. I think two of me just wants to come up. Um,
I think
will
so.
you?
I think so. We might just want to embrace it today.
Yeah, right. Just go with the flow. What's so funny is, and I'll get into that. Is I teach going live because I know a lot of people want to go live, and so I teach people how to embrace it. And what I say is, just go with the flow. If two cameras come up, guess what? They came up. It's not the
Right.
end. The sky isn't falling, right? Oh my god, a second camera came up. People give grace. They understand there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be technical difficulties. I just find it personally easier for me because when I record something, like when I'm recording my course, for an example, nope, I don't like how I sounded. Nope, I don't like how I look. And I would delete, re record, and it never got done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just like this. But will you take just a
Well,
few
don't let
moments?
perfect be the enemy, right?
Right, exactly, exactly. I want the audience to know a little bit more about you, who you are, what you do. So I'm going to give the floor to you. Take some time just to let them know who you are, a little bit more about Alison French herself, and then we'll dive into some more of the topics that we're talking about. But the floor is now yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here today. I'm really excited to talk to you about not just course creation, but sort of the whole process of being an entrepreneur and being able to kind of just live your dream a little bit. And I am Allison French. I am the managing director of Alto Solutions, which is a small women owned consulting company based in the Washington DC area, but of course we serve clients all over the world, which is sort of one of the upsides, I guess, if you will, of the pandemic, where everything went virtual and we're able to work with people all over. And what I do is I work with organizations and their leaders and their people to help them build stronger teams, to help them improve their communications, improve their leadership, and manage through change and transitions. My background initially is in organizational change management. I spent many years doing that at Deloitte. But I also have experience in the nonprofit sector and higher education. And so I'm able to work with all sorts of different clients, and really help them to make the connections that they need to make to achieve their highest potential.
Yeah, that is such a great kind of framework you just put there because you touched on one of the main subjects that pushed me into what I'm doing. And when we referenced the pandemic and kind of where it started at, it pushed us into that virtual space, right? And then I think we're such humans are such great things because we adapt and we learn how to work through things. But then there also gets to that point once we're in that space, once we're in the virtual world, now we have to learn how to fine tune it, right? How to
Right.
framework our we have to speak different, we have to communicate different, we connect different in essence, right? One of the small things that I found when we first started this is our brains are wired to want to look at the person as we speak, for an example.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
most people look at the monitor when they're talking. In essence, we think that we're looking at the person, but it loses a little bit of connection, at least for me, right? So for an example,
Mhm.
your framework, your picture is uh, underneath me. So if I look here, I'm looking at your face. But to the audience, right, to the
Yeah,
audience, it looks like, wait, you're not looking at me any longer. But in my brain, I'm
right.
thinking I'm talking to you. And then I had to train myself to come up to the camera and force myself to look at this camera. So
Mm, yeah.
was it was it a tough experience for you, or did you adapt pretty easily to learning how to work in that virtual space, or did it take you a while also? And I ask that because I know a lot of people get frustrated and they're like, I'm not connecting, there's not an
Yeah.
engagement when I get on a podcast or when I get on virtually. How was it for you?
Well, I think it's somewhere in between the 2 extremes. I don't think that it was super difficult, because I had been doing some of this already, but at the same time, it wasn't a seamless transition, and there's just a lot that you need to, you know, sort of embrace that you just don't know every single thing that's going to happen. And it's funny too, as we're talking right now, I'm noticing that I'm a little bit off, at least from my view, that it looks like I'm speaking, but I'm a little bit delayed. And so that's the kind of thing that you just have to go with. If you know, if that you see that's going on, you just have to kind of go with the flow, like you said before. I had been doing some work virtually. I had been working with an organization that was delivering virtual training, and so I was able to adapt pretty quickly in that regard. But I do think that there is a very different way to do training when you're doing it virtually versus when you are doing it in person. And there's a lot of folks who, kind of said, I've got a course, I'm just going to pick it up and I'm just going to make it virtual. I'm going to put it on Zoom. We're going to spend 3 days together from 8 to 4 on Zoom. And our brains don't work that way. We can't sit there in front of a screen for 8 hours a day, and really truly engage. It just doesn't. We don't learn well that way. And so you need to kind of figure out, well, how do your adult learners best learn in a virtual environment? And what I found is that typically chunking it out, breaking it up, having shorter, maybe every week you have a segment, or maybe you have 2 segments over the course of 2 days, but not having it any more than half a day, because you start to lose people. And so when you talk about engagement, and you're trying to sit and look at talking heads for a full day, it just gets really old, and you're not really processing the same way you would if you were in person. Then there's also the ability to add different kinds of technology. So it's not just about using Zoom or Teams or any of the other communication services that are out there, but it's what else can you add in? How can you add in something interactive, not just me talking with you and using maybe the chat that's already inherent in whatever platform you're using, but what about polls? What about using something like a Poll Everywhere software or Mentimeter? Those are 2 tools that I often use. Sometimes we'll make a word cloud together or do something together that enables people to really feel like they're more plugged into what's going on, as opposed to being just a face behind the screen.
Yeah, and that is where you step into my world because I absolutely love that. And I was in that same kind of boat when I first started in my course kind of thing. And we're going to dive into a second of like who you target and who your course is for and so forth. But when I first started into this aspect, I was like, okay, what can I do to be different? I always wanted to be different. And I don't need to be a 10 different, for an example. I just need to be 20% different than a competitor or someone who I want to people to come and speak with for my course, for an example, or what I'm working towards. And when you said pose just now, I loved it because I want to be interactive. I love doing those word clouds where I'm asking people, hey, tell us where you're from if you're here, for an example, and they punch it in and then the states and the areas
Right,
start
you
to
start
come
seeing
up.
things come up, yeah, in real time.
Yes, yes, and they love it. They love seeing their name or what their putting on the screen come up, or having their, hey Paul, I see that you're from my hometown or something. It makes them feel more connected. And I don't think,
Absolutely.
tell me your thoughts on this, because okay, I'm the type of person, when I first started doing webinars and I first started, going down that path, I reached out to the people who would come on or didn't come on, and I asked them, hey, what was it that made you stay? What was it that made you not? I
Mhm.
wanted to do market research because I wanted to find out if they said, I just didn't think it was for me, or you said this and it made me feel that way. I didn't know I was doing that. But I think
Mm,
some people are afraid to do that because they feel they may get hurt, their feelings. But this is business. Like, you need to know why people aren't showing up, or why they aren't staying, and your conversion rates may be dropping or something. So is that imposter syndrome? I think I don't know if directly that's what they would call that, but did you experience any of that, or do you find that is prevalent in, when you're going through your process?
Do I find is it prevalent that people are not are tuning out, or just the idea of going back and asking
Going
for
back and asking
feedback?
questions, if they're afraid to find out, that what
Oh,
they're doing is incorrect.
right, right. Well, I mean, I'm completely 100% with you. Feedback is a gift, and if we are going to be offering workshops and courses, we need to know what people want. We need to know what's going to resonate with them, what kind of desired outcomes that they have, and what we can do to make their experience just plain better. So I think, the idea of going and asking them is really a great one. I do a lot of courses that where I'm brought in by an organization. I would say I do a lot less of marketing my own courses to, like individually, than an organization brings me in, a conference brings me in, I do a workshop, I might do a keynote along with it, and I'll do a workshop with their contingents. And they usually do some sort of evaluation, and if they don't, I always encourage them, or I'll put together an evaluation for the group afterwards, because I think it's really important to know what they thought of the content, what they thought of the format, what they thought of me as the presenter, and really specifically, not just yeah, I liked it or I didn't like it, but what did you like about it, what didn't you like about it, what can we do better to improve the user experience. So I think it's really important. When I was putting together, I think I had mentioned to you that one of my business partners and I have a series of workshops based on Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And we did a bunch of market testing with that, where we did some free webinars. We just invited people to come and sort of preview our content. And then we stayed on the line with them and asked them what they thought afterwards. So it was a matter of, and in fact, I'm about to do that again in May with another workshop I'm developing with another partner about owning your journey and reclaiming your joy. And we're working with a group of consultants where we're going to do a dry run of the workshop with them, but then we're going to stay on the line with them and say, all right, now tell me, what did you think of this? What did you think of that? Really trying to get their specific feedback, because I don't think that we can improve or we can meet people's needs if we don't go through that process.
Yeah, so very true. And when you were just saying that, and as soon as you said Mr. Rogers, I was like, dun,
Ah,
dun, 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 dun,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that's the one.
Right.
That's the one.
I don't own the rights to that music, so please don't shut the stream down, right? I just hummed it. I just hummed it, guys. But no, that is such a great kind of way that you just put it, because if companies are out there looking to improve and they want to make whatever they're doing better for, the people they're presenting it for, they've got to also say, nope, it was just good. They've got to dive deeper to say to their audience, guys, how can we improve this for you? And I think in
Mhm,
today's time frame, that's what people look for, that value of making them feel good, not just the informative A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? They also want to know, like, can it make me smile? Can it make me feel like I am helping the community or helping others
mhm,
who need help? And I really appreciate that. So, what type of companies, if someone's listening right now and they're going to watch this later, what type of companies do you feel fit best for your courses? And let's talk a little bit about what exactly, does your course fit into, and what are you looking to achieve with that? So if someone's looking, that way they can say, you know what, I love what she just said. I want a Mr. Rogers in the neighborhood coming to talk to us as well. So what type of
Yeah.
companies are you looking to work with?
Honestly, I mentioned before that I work with organizations of all types. I have background in corporate, I have background in government, in nonprofit, in higher education, and associations. And it's less about what kind of company that I might be working with. It's more about what challenges are they dealing with and what do they need? Are they going through some sort of a transition? Do they need some coaching around change and how to navigate it? Whether they're leading it, whether they're a leader in the organization, or whether they're somebody in the organization that feels like the change is happening to them and they need tools to be able to process what's happening and really navigate through the changes that are going on and the transitions that are happening to them. So I would say that, anybody who is a leader and you're trying to build a strong team, and think about virtually as well. Think about how we are sometimes disconnected and we're trying to lead in this virtual environment. How do you bring people together? How do you get them talking to one another? How do you get them to understand the different styles of communication that each one may have? I have a number of set workshops that I've created, but I'm also very much in tune with customizing things for my clients. So I might take a piece of one workshop and meld it with a piece of another workshop to meet their very specific needs. So it's not just about saying, hey, here's this thing off the shelf that you can buy, and maybe it's a workshop on motivating staff, or maybe it's a workshop on I do a lot of work with neuro leadership and how does our brain impact what we do. You mentioned before, Lion, about the brain and the connections and what works and what doesn't. And I think that's really important for people to understand, especially if they're trying to lead a team, lead an organization, lead through change. What's going on in my brain? What's going on in the brain of the brains of the people that I'm working with, that I'm trying to influence, that I'm trying to manage, that I'm trying to engage? So as you can see, as I'm talking, these are topics that are really applicable across the board. So I don't really specifically go to any one type of company or organization. It's more about, what are the challenges that you're having? Are you trying to build that stronger team? Are you trying to manage through change? Are you trying to motivate, influence, understand kind of how to be a better leader by understanding what's going on in your brain? So that's kind of it.
Yeah, I love that. And for me, that's absolutely simply amazing, right? So every once in a while, you throw those little doop doop inside there. And I love that because I am a big person who loves how to break down what we think sometimes and find what hill we need to climb over to get towards our
Mm.
goal. And when you were saying, hey, you know what, I piece together these things. And I love that because it's not just this is what I do and that's it. Right? So we have to be able to, one of my favorite scenes from the old show Friends, we have to be able to pivot when he's carrying the
Yes,
couch up. Right? So you
yes.
got pivot. Right? When we get in that scenario, we're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I need to take this piece out, or I need to add this piece in and combine them. And I think sometimes companies can get so bogged down and that they think this has worked for me for so long that I don't want to change it. And sometimes
Mhm.
that can be, devastating. We have to be able to adapt a little bit and change, even with our courses. I want to touch on a little bit of your process for designing your course, or, because I think one of the things that I learned recently, and thank you for this, is that when I started my course, I made my entire course and then I put it out there. And I didn't think at that time, well, I should probably ask people maybe step by step when I'm going through this. Let's get a focus group together and say, hey guys, what do
Mhm.
y'all think about this? Oh, I didn't know that this background or whatever was hurting your eyes or something, for an example.
Mm, mm.
Little things like
Yeah,
that affect. So what was a process that you went through, or how did you did that for someone who may be listening to saying, I want to start a course, but I didn't think about doing that? Is there any tips or anything that roadblocks that
sure.
you went through? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think The courses that I do are often spurned on or brought on by a client's demand. And a lot of the courses I've created are because some client came up to me and said, I really want to do a course on innovation. Do you have anything? And I probably had bits and pieces, but I hadn't strung it together as a course. So I've made them for these specific clients, but then I've been able to use them and customize them for other clients as well. And what I tend to do is if in the scenario I'm making it for a client, which I know is not necessarily the case we were talking about here, I need to really understand their objectives and their desired outcomes first. And then I'll go back to, you can kind of see I've got a shelf of books behind me. I'll go back to the research and find out what's most applicable to share with them, create some activities around those bits of research, create discussion topics. But as I'm doing that, and this is applicable to whether you are putting a course together at a request of a client or whether you just have an idea, like the case of the Mr. Rogers courses. By the way, it's called Won't You Be My Trainer is one of them, and Won't You Be My Manager is another one, which is, of course, a riff on Won't You Be My Neighbor. In that case, that was just an idea that my colleague and I had. We had just been talking and brainstorming, and it kind of came to both of us. And in that case, we kind of buckled down and we just did a big brainstorm, kind of got everything down on paper, and then started to break it down into components, right? And then put together an outline of what are the different modules, what are the different components. In the training that's based on Mr. Rogers, for instance, we have 8 principles that we created. So, we're basically applying what we learned from Mr. Rogers when we were kids to these 8 core principles that we've developed now as adults and as trainers that we think apply to. You're another trainer, you can take the Won't You Be My Trainer course and learn these principles as they apply to you as a trainer. Or if you're a manager, same principles, different focus. But what we really did is we sat down and we outlined, well, what are those 8 principles that we want to get across? And then each one of them, we started putting things underneath each and every one of those, building in activities. And what's nice about that is that the course can stretch, or we can make it a lot more slim if we need to, because we can add and subtract pieces or exercises, make discussions longer, take discussions out, whatever we need to do, based on the desired length of the course. We've done it as a 3-day course with a client overseas. In fact, it was all done virtually. And we've done it as a 60-minute online presentation. So, you have to be able to pivot, like you said. And sometimes you put together a course and you think it's the most wonderful thing, but people don't want that long of a course, or people want more. And how are you going to know that unless you go out and shop it around a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly why I said, what you were talking about, because it resonated so much to the point of where we have to also adapt and pivot to the times where people want information a lot faster sometimes, or they want it, precise and hey, just give it to me, right? And they don't want to maybe sit through, like you said, talking earlier, 3 hours or, and so forth. I was recently on a summit and I was talking and teaching on a summit. And summits sometimes they go a whole day, 2 3 day
Right.
summit, but you've got 8 speakers in one day and so forth.
Right.
Whew,
Yeah,
I
that's a
try to
lot.
bite it.
That's a lot
Yeah.
on your brain too. I mean, that's a lot of overwhelm and context switching.
Yes. And one thing I noticed when I was doing my summit is that I got a lot of messages and people reaching out to me afterwards. And that's deliberate of what I try to do with my framework, right? My screen is different. As soon as someone comes on and sees the way it looks, they perk up a little bit because they were watching a blank screen or blank walls all day long or something like that. And here's something I just did when you were just speaking about it. Let me see if I can go back and get it right now. So as you were speaking just now, I was like, you know what, I want to do this. And oh, here, okay, here we go. So I did this, and I was like, ta-da,
There he is,
Mr. Mr. Rogers, right? So I was like, let me just do
my
that.
friend Fred. I love him so much.
So,
And
and
his birthday was just the other day too. I think it was yesterday actually, and it's actually this appropriate timing because they his foundation makes his birthday annually World Neighbor Day, and so
Ah,
it's kind of appropriate that he showed up on the screen today.
look at that. And then it is one of those things that is etched in our minds, right? We could be anywhere. So we're for some who may be watching this who don't know who that is, we might be dating ourselves a little bit, but
That's true.
it was like a peaceful, would you be? Could you be my neighbor? Right? It was, oh, anyways, that
Do you
does bring
know
back some.
Mr. Rogers was really the first virtual teacher, if you think about it.
Okay.
He showed up on our TV screens. He taught us lessons that we learned as children that we can
Mm.
take into our lives as adults. But he did it through the TV screen. He did it through a screen, and he made you feel, and this goes
Ah,
back to the part about engagement that we talked about. He made you feel like you were right there with him, that you were his neighbor. You were with him
yeah,
in his neighborhood. He really made you
yeah.
feel that way.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until you just kind of pointed out like that. And you know, what's crazy also is he had this rhythmatic tone, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a fast talk. It was such a slow, but it drew you in. Even for
Mhm.
kids, you were like, you're just glued to the screen. Oh, that just
Yeah,
opened up a
he
whole
was
new.
very yeah, he was very intentional, so that's actually one of the kind of components that we talk about. He was very intentional, and that's, I think, really important too in this idea of course creation and what you're going to do. Intentionality is key. You're not just throwing a bunch of stuff together and saying, here's my course. You
Yeah,
need to be really intentional about what are the objectives that you're trying to meet. If it's the client's objectives or if it's your own objectives and you're putting together this course, what do you want people to get out of it? And
yeah.
really spend the time up front to outline that. Be very intentional. And Mr. Rogers was intentional in everything that he did, in his tone of voice, like you said, in his choice of words. He wrote out his script every time, and he was very intentional in the kinds of words that he used and making sure he used words that people understood and that had positive
Mm.
connotations. And so it's not just about the objectives, but it's also about what are the words that you're using when you're putting together your course. Who is the audience that you're trying to focus on? In my case, I do this for a wide variety of audiences, but sometimes I do have to switch how I speak about things when I go to one audience or another. It's going to be a little different if I'm talking to a nonprofit than it is if I'm in higher education, than it is if I'm in a large corporation. I'm probably going to be using slightly different language for each rather. So intentionality is so important.
Yes, and that is one of those things when we sit back and think about it, because those different organizations you just spoke of, we want to make sure we cater to what they're craving or they're wanting, right? If we use
Mhm.
the same tonality, the same wording in each one might be like, wait, that's way over my head, and they tune you out, and they'll still be sitting there, but they're virtually in their mind space thinking about the beach or going to lunch or something at that moment. If we kind of lose them, so yeah, we have to kind of also speak. And I'm trying to find a correct way of saying it. Not speak at their level, but speak to the what they want. Yeah, I guess that's a better way, because I don't want to say someone's at a different level, but speak to what they want. And I know that was something that I needed to learn, because I'm a bright, colorful person. I get it. I'm always still be who I am at my core, but I also need to bring it to what they want. I can't go in a nursing home and go, "Yes, hey, we're gonna learn this today," right? I also, hey guys, guess what you're gonna learn today? I can still deliver that tonality but in a different manner. So I appreciate that. Let's talk about really quick, and then we'll kind of start to wrap it up. Because this
Sure.
is my thought process on this, because I've heard you say this a couple of times with people whom you've worked with. I've found so many people who just say, you know what, I'm doing it myself. And I think that's great, but I also subscribe to the mindset of no successful person has made it to where they're at by themselves. They will more than likely always tell you, I hire people who are smarter than me and put them in a room. Right? I bring along people who,
Yeah,
inspire
yeah.
me. So, what pushed you or what got you into that kind of space?
The idea of partnerships, working with others, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Or
Instead of just saying
yeah.
I'm just doing it myself, I'm not worrying about anyone else. Yeah, what pushed you into working partnerships with others?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say I do have courses that I've created myself, and I have workshops that I've created with others, and they're, they're similar in some ways, they're different in other ways. But I think that I'm just such a big connector. I mean, it's important to me to connect with other people, and to learn constantly, that whole idea of lifelong learning. And you can't do that on your own, no matter how many books you read, no matter how many TED Talks you watch, you still need that human connection. And I find that when I partner with somebody who has maybe some similar skills, but in a maybe a slightly different twist, that it really brings new life into whatever I'm doing. One of the new workshops that I'm developing, this idea of reclaiming your journey and owning your joy, I'm doing with a friend of mine who I worked with years ago in higher education, who is now a professional artist. And her whole thing is about painting joy, and we just started talking one day, and it kind of came up that we may have something here that other people would benefit from, but they're not going to benefit from it if I just go out with it. And they're not going to benefit from it if she just goes out with it, because she's bringing the art side of it. She's bringing her painting, her process of how she goes through painting joy. I'm bringing the process of kind of facilitating the conversation about thinking back along these key moments of your life and pulling out some pieces of joy. And so together we make this whole. We really make this an experience rather than just a presentation or a workshop. It becomes more of an experience. So, to borrow an art analogy, it adds color essentially to what we're doing. In fact, I'm going to move my head for a minute, actually moving the wrong way, but this painting is one of hers, that inspires me, and I kind of look at it every day, and I just feel inspired by it, and it helps me with my work as well. So I think, you're looking into different modalities, you're looking into, differences that people bring to the table, and it can only make things more rich.
Yeah, so as soon as you start mentioning the art of color and everything like that, it like just chills go through me because, so I lived in Japan for 6 years, and one of the things I really adopted from like living there in that culture was pick up an item in your home, pick up an item somewhere, and if it doesn't make you smile, if it doesn't make you
Mm.
feel joy, then is it really
Why do,
necessary,
why
right?
do you have it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. If it is, or maybe we're going through spring cleaning, for an example, and we find something and it's been in the closet for 2 years. Then why does it need to still be there? Give it to an organization that can probably give it to someone else who might feel good about it, right? It could be
Right,
something as
right.
simple as a
I love that.
painting, like he's right. And now I'm like, it couldn't have been bringing me that much joy if it's been in the closet for a year, 2 years. Maybe someone else might see this picture. Maybe someone else might see this frame, and it changes a little bit in their world, right? And
Hmm.
that's one of the things that pushed me into what I started to do within my podcast, which is called Redesign Your Life, is because I got to a point where I was diagnosed about 3 years ago with MS, and I had to
Mm.
redesign everything in my world, right? I
Yeah.
couldn't run. I couldn't. I was active. I was a Marine. I retired from the Marine. But I couldn't do those things. Mentally, physically, everything changed. And I was like,
Mm.
there is someone else out there who's probably feeling similar, and I need to spread that color. I need to spread that
Yeah.
joy to tell them you're not alone. And so I think it's a disservice if anyone out there is listening to this who may be thinking to themselves, well, I don't want to ask for the sale. I don't want to do a course because I feel like I'm going to bother someone. I don't You deserve it. They deserve it. You need to put
Yeah.
your information out there because if you're withholding information that could possibly help someone, if you're an artist and you want to paint and you're like, well, maybe someone might not like my painting, maybe they will.
Yes.
What if?
Yes, exactly, exactly. I think it all stems from that. You have to do what you love, and if you're creating a course, think about what are those things that bring you joy? What are those things that you want to share with others? How can you help them? How can you benefit them? You may not know the answer, but think about how it's benefiting you,
Yeah.
and it's likely going to benefit somebody else too. And I love the fact that you do that other podcast, and maybe Sarah and I could come on and talk about this reclaiming your joy.
Yes. It's those kind of moments. No, I would absolutely love that because, I'm gonna ask a question, and that I do on my other set, but I'm gonna ask it here just because that kind of ties into that when we were talking about the brain and so forth like that. So when I get a potential client or someone comes in and I see that they're stuck in essence, right? I'll ask them this kind of question, and you can answer it or not, but here it goes. So ask someone, I say, well, what is your favorite type of food? Whatever type of food it is. Let's just say pizza. Go in general, right? And I said, now let's imagine if we're sitting at a table and you've got four people at the table with you. You don't know them; they're all strangers to you. And someone, what the person right to your left, the person on your left, they just blow on your pizza. Nothing mean spirited. They just blow on your pizza. I said, what do you do? Do you eat it or do you get rid of it? And I think 99% of the people answer like, no, I won't eat that. I said, why? Because they just blew on my pizza. They blew on my food. I said, okay, same scenario. Nothing changes except the item that's going to be ate. Now it's a birthday cake and they blow out the candles,
Mm.
right? Because we've been conditioned that is okay. Yeah, of course I'm gonna eat the cake, but what's the difference? They blew on it. They blew the same amount of energy, everything, and they go, "Oh wow, yeah, right." Because we can change our mindset. Which, anyways, I'm not even gonna go there right now because that's a whole nother topic. So
Well, and of course that all changed with COVID too, right? You can't
yeah,
blow on a birthday cake anymore either.
yes. You know what's funny is I forget what's the saying. Something is a necessity of something. I can't think of the saying right now, but I was saying that because I was watching an episode of Shark Tank, and someone came up with an
Mm.
idea that they was a because they were talking about germs being blown on the cake and so forth, and they had a device that the person could blow in, and it would blow a fan, and the fan would blow the cake out because they didn't think about getting germs on it. And I was like, oh my goodness, we come up with anything and everything. But hey, that's how
And
things
why
are.
not?
And
I
right.
mean, it's interesting. I worked with a group once that we used to keep a bad idea journal. And it
Mm,
was just anything that came to your mind, you just write it down in your bad idea journal. And you know what? A lot of those weren't bad ideas at all. They turned
yeah.
out to be good ideas, or they turned out to be ideas that maybe were the spark of something else.
Yeah.
It wasn't that idea that was the one that we were going to pursue, but there's
Yeah.
something there. There's something underneath it, and we need to kind of pull that thread a little bit and see where it goes.
Yeah.
So there's really no such thing as a bad idea. It's just more of, well, I don't think this is a good idea. I think it's a bad idea. Okay, write it down in your bad idea journal. And
Yeah.
then let's come back to it and let's see if there's a thread we can pull.
Yeah. I
And
have
maybe
a book
there isn't,
called The
but maybe we
Right.
had some fun with it regardless.
Yeah, because then you can say, okay, well that didn't work, but let's take that piece and that sparked an idea, like you said, to do this, and those pieces match and it creates something different. I
Mhm.
absolutely love that. Are there any, let's say, books you're currently reading that you would maybe recommend to someone who wants to start this process or have read you say, hey, you know what, start this? It could be your own book. Is there anything that you have that you would say to someone, you know what, this is a good starting point, a good idea, or to get them kind of that spark to get them going.
Well, I don't necessarily have anything about course creation specifically.
Okay.
I do want to say that I one of my Bibles is The Brain at Work by David Rock, or is it Your Brain at Work? I got to find it. I think it's Your Brain at Work by David Rock.
Okay.
And I really enjoy that one because it really helps us understand what is going on in our brain, how it's driving us to do the things that we do or away from the things that we do.
Mm,
And I think it can help everybody. I think it's the
Yeah.
kind of book that, no matter who you are or what you do, understanding what's going on up here and back
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
is really critical to your process. And it might also, think about it, if you're putting something together and you're feeling resistance about it, you're feeling frustration. Why are you feeling those things? And it
Yeah.
helps you kind of to dig a little bit deeper and understand. It's sometimes it's I always say, it's not you, it's your brain, right? What's going on in here that's driving you to feel this way? And I think it's just valuable no matter what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love, and I haven't read this one in a while, but every once in a while I'll go back into it. And I have to recall. I think it's Maxwell, John Maxwell, John C. Maxwell, but it's
Hmm.
21 irrefutable ways to make friends or something along that line. I have to remember the
Yes, I've
title.
read some of his stuff too. Hmm.
Yeah, but in business, we have to learn to be able to read the room also, right? Everyone is different how you're going to approach a potential customer, client, just relating to people.
Yeah.
Maybe someone needs a softer tone, or maybe someone needs a more direct tone. You have to be able to learn to read how to approach people sometimes and do it
Mhm.
fairly fast to see what type of people they are. And that's not a I don't want to say it's not a task that we learned just growing up, right? Sometimes we have to be taught those things because we don't
Mhm.
know what we don't know. And if we go into a business world or a different type of atmosphere, we need to learn how to play by the rules in the game and stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
um, can you tell people about your courses if they want to maybe reach out to you? How can they reach out to you? How can they find you? So that way they can say, hey, you know what? I need this for my company, my my employees, my whatever my audience needs to hear about this a little bit more.
Yeah. So the best way to find me is on my website, which is www.altosolutions.llc.com. That's all one word, Alto, ALTO Solutions, LLC.com. And on there, you can drop me a line directly. You can fill out the contact form. You can see my list of workshops. Like I mentioned, there's some on the neuroscience behind leadership. There's some on motivating staff, having difficult conversations, innovation, influence, change management. There's a fun one that I do called Jedi Change Management that brings you back to Star Wars a little bit. And there you go. There's my homepage right there. So yes, that's the best way to reach me. You can also just directly email me at Alison. That's Alison, one L, at altosolutionsllc.com.
Yes, make sure that, oh, here we go. Let me see. Make sure that we do reach out, ladies and gentlemen, because as my mom used to always tell me, closed mouths don't get fed. Right? You have to speak up. You have to reach out and say, hey, I can use some assistance. I need some spark. I need something in my business. I need something that, can drive something. So make sure you reach out. Alison, I want to thank you so much for coming on, talking with me, the audience, and anyone that finds this information valuable. It means a lot to me because I remember my journey when I first started, I didn't have or I can easily find referenced items to watch and to look and read, and I didn't know what to
Yeah.
so that's why I asked these questions because I was like I was that I was thinking to myself, I was that young kid wanting to know information, I just didn't know where to find it. So I love having these conversations. I want you to hang with me for 1 second, or I'm gonna end the show and I'm gonna come back and then I'm gonna just wrap things up with you. So thank you so very much for that.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Yes.
sir. Thanks for having me here. This was fun.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, um, thank you all for coming again to watch another episode and listening wherever you're at. I sincerely appreciate it. And I want this to continue to grow because with each other growing and helping, we can reach those platforms and everywhere that we want to get to. So, thank you so very much. And I want to give a big welcome and thank you to my guest that came on. So, oh, and also, my wife would absolutely just dismantle me if I didn't do this. So, for everyone who is listening and watching, also, we have started a coffee company. My wife loves coffee. Crazy because I don't drink coffee, but I love the smell of it. It really wakes me up. So if you have a chance, make sure you go check out. Oh, I have you still there. Let me take that picture off. That's supposed to be me. Look at that. There we go. That's not Allison's coffee company. That's ours. So, but this is our coffee company right here, the Boutique Store is the website. Make sure you go check it out. Order a sample pack. Let us know about it. It's brand new. So we are definitely looking about it. We source ethically beans from different places, and we have them coming from all over the world. So if you love flavored coffee, if you love coffee from everywhere around the world, let us know. We carry we carry whole beans, grind already, and K cups as well. And we do not roast them until you order them. So they come fresh to your door. So we definitely want to thank you so much for being a part of this, ladies and gentlemen. Lion Flood VCA Academy, you all enjoy the rest of the day and make sure you continue to go live.